The Beat Goes On. Tonight, our regular guests are Tony Amos, Barry Rushton, and Shane. And your host on The Beat Goes On, Gerard Smith.
Once again, a big welcome to The Beat Goes On. Tonight, our special guest is John Litton. John is halfway through his term as Grand Master of Freemasonry in New Zealand. To get to the top in Freemasonry is a wonderful achievement. And I asked John what he likes best about the job. This week, Face TV is proud to announce the launch of its brand new property show, Property Success. I talked to host Wayne Maguire. And no week is complete without a visit from our Parnell ambassador, Kevin Harvey, and one of his tenants. Tonight we welcome Fred Bacon from Farachi. But first up on The Beat Goes On.
He's out there in the rain. He's out there in the sunshine. He's out there looking to find the best in movies and music. Our resident guru on all things movies and music, Barry Rushton.
Barry J. Rushton.
Isn't it great to have a holiday, mate?
Oh,
Isn't
nice,
it
wasn't it?
great? I know.
Yeah.
What it means, though, Jared, is we're sneaking into Christmas time. You know that. We are about to trundle into the festive season, as they say.
You just made it in time through that traffic on tonight, Monday night, Barry.
Had to battle my way, but
I think you're playing that album.
I was playing it loud. But before I talk about this album, I will talk briefly that I went and saw the Fleetwood Mac.
Oh.
I know, but decadent, I have to admit, over in Sydney.
Yep.
Only because our good mate Richard was there, and so I went and saw him and my children, or one of my children. One of my children, one of my childs, and so we combined it, but it was fantastic. Wow. But the big news, of course, I know.
We're in the final.
Next weekend, please, I'm ready.
We're in the final, Barry. Even talking about it, we might jinx it. Hey?
Okay, enough.
Talk about it.
But Gerald, getting back to music, all of us are a bit of a byproduct, when of where we sort of grew up. What was being played at the time.
The Beatles.
Exactly. The actual, what we've learned over the time. But if we talked a week or so ago, we had a new album out by Keith Richards. Well, you sort of know, even before it's been played, what it's going to be a bit like, And if Paul McCartney's going to put a new album out, you sort of got to know what it's like. Well, here's an album the new album by Don Henley. So you already know what it's going to be a little bit like, right? We're talking about the Eagles now, aren't we? Because Don Henley, wonderful, wonderful member of that band. This is his new album, first one in 15 years, solo album, called Cass County. Now,
He's looking a bit old, though, isn't he?
Oh, he's definitely looking a bit old. No, well, he's 70-something. 70. Oh, there you go.
Wow.
I love America because they have these counties, and this is Cass County, where he grew up in Texas. And if you look at a map of Texas and sort of see how they've divided the counties, it's almost like little squares. And little Cass County is in the northeast part of Texas. Now, and this is what I love about this whole thing, is that it's sort of like, it's a romp, it's going back to the roots. He grew up in that town. He was influenced by the people who lived in that area, obviously was. There's songs on there talking about the railway tracks. And see, the railway tracks took people out of town, like he did. He made his fame and fortune, obviously, in California.
Yeah,
and so,
and there's a railway thing.
Oh, it is too, and there's a couple of photos in there you'll see through there. And so it's a great reflective album of his roots. It's not nostalgic, it's not sort of going back. It talks a lot about the common things, the common themes that go on in life in these little towns. Things like sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will break your heart. And little home grassroots stuff, and that's what I love about that. Now, when you're famous like him, you can pull in a lot of people. Mick Jagger's on there, Miranda Lambert. Miranda Lambert won the Grammy for the best country album in 2014. You've got Merle Haggart's on there. You've got Alison Krauss, You've got Dolly Parton, you've got Lucinda Williams, which we've talked about.
He didn't even have to turn up himself, did he?
Well, he did, and I'm glad he did. But you listen to this, you're going to love the sound.
The years went rushing by in the twinkling of an eye. We rolled with the changes. The life we knew was gone. Our friends had all moved on. Time rearranges. But on our wedding day, they all came back to say, congratulations.
Can't go wrong with this, Barry. It's
You can't
wonderful.
go wrong with this. You see, as I said before, first solo album, 15 years, and we always remember the last one, the songs you had. It was things like The Heart of the Matter, The End of Innocence, End of the Innocence, and The New York Minute. You know, they're all, and if you like that sort of feel or that timbre,
New
you've
York
got it in this album as well.
Yeah, he was the drummer, wasn't he?
He was the drummer.
And he was also a big songwriter. He was
Absolutely,
a songwriter and
absolutely.
a big singer. He was a great singer. He was part of the Eagles' big voices.
Oh, he's still part of the Eagles.
Yeah.
Well, they finished the Hell Freezes Over tour, their final tour, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, never say final because you know something's going to happen.
But
They'll
out
come
of
back
the
again.
Eagles, he is one of the big three, isn't he?
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Not only that, he's the fourth highest grossing drummer in the history of music. Behind Ringo Starr, funnily enough, Phil Collins and someone else. So he's
Barry
fourth.
Rushton.
And I'd love to slide myself into number 3. You know, what he's been doing though, he's been slipping in and out of Nashville for the last sort of 5 years, you know, doing songs. A lot of these recorded in, guess where, Jared? Blackbird Studios, hello. Mastered again by who? Bob Ludwig, you know, boom, boom, boom. And so, you know, when you get this high power, then you're going to get an album that is great. And I know that you talked about recently listening to an album in a car. Well, that's the same feeling I always get when I stick this on. If I'm by myself, of course, you can't have anybody else in the car unless they love what you love, because you crank it up and, you know, you finally have a policeman knocking on your door. Didn't you hear a siren behind you? No, I didn't. I'm sorry, I'm listening to this music, you know. It's not quite like that, you know. But as again, you are going to love the actual imagery behind this whole thing. The people that is grassroots people that have been part of his life, you know, way back when he lived in Linden, which was right up there in that Cass County, you know. So it's a beautiful album. In fact, the more I play it, and I've said this before, but the more I play it, the more I like it. And again, it's one of those that you'll think, gee, this is too country for me, but it's not. It's not at all. And the music, the instruments in there, and the words in there, superb. Don Henley.
Did you actually buy it, Barry?
I actually did. I know it's a shame. It's the expense I go to, Jared. The expense I go to. But Cass County, you're going to love this thing.
Seeing you bought it, I think we should give it away, Barry.
We're not giving this one away. I can tell you that. Nice seeing you, mate. See you next week, and let's go for the cup.
Okay.
See you, mate.
Thank you, Barry. Coming up next on The Beat Goes On, we welcome the host of our brand new property show here on Face TV. The new show is called Property Success. Be watching every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. with our next guest, host Wayne Maguire. Wayne Maguire, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Special thrill to have you tonight, Wayne. Special thrill because here at Face TV, we've always wanted a show about real estate because it's always in the news everywhere else, but it doesn't get a mention on Face TV. But now we've cured that.
You've changed that, absolutely.
Yeah. We now have a brand new real estate show hosted by Wayne Maguire from Ray White.
And I'm very excited. I think I'm nervous at the same time, but we've had a lot of fun working together, and we're on TV tomorrow night for the first time.
Tomorrow night, and look, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Wow, great time, isn't it?
On our channel here.
Yeah, good on you. Now, before we talk about it further, you had a good Labour weekend?
Fantastic Labour weekend. Just enjoyed it with the kids, so very, very relaxing.
What's a good, relaxing Labour weekend with Wayne Maguire? How do you enjoy it?
For us, in particular this weekend, it has been making sure that all the bike tyres are pumped up. So everybody's got their bikes, and I've got 2 little grandchildren, so they're in the buggy behind, waving out to people as they go past. So and we live in St Heliers, so getting down around Tamaki Drive and the waterfront or across there.
You have a hectic week, don't you, being in the real estate business? Well, what's gone wrong with the market? Well, what's gone right with the market? Some people say that it's fantastic because they own property and they're going to make a fortune selling it, and other people say, I've got to pay these prices.
Yeah, it does depend, doesn't it? If you're in the market already, you're loving it.
Yes.
You love the prices. But at the same time, I think you're uneasy about the level they're at within New Zealand. If you're not in and you're looking to get in, yeah, absolutely. It's very, very hard to get onto that ladder, and there's some pain to go through to do that. But once you're on, it's great. And even if the market dips, and it will at some stage, it will come back.
It always comes back.
Absolutely, it does.
Now, Wayne, before we talk any further, what's going to be on the show? What have you got in your mind about what you'd like to tell the New Zealand public?
Well, the whole aim for us on the show is that the fact, and when you're buying or selling in real estate, to the difference between a good sale and a fantastic sale, I think comes down to relationships. So now, over the period of time I've been in real estate, I've met some really great people. And they're not just real estate salespeople, but they are contributors, suppliers to the industry, experts that give us guidance. And the whole idea on the show is to bring those experts in that I know and introduce them and share them with other people, so that whether it's a salesperson out there or a vendor who's selling or a buyer who's buying, I've said, hey, look, talk to this guy. They are fantastic. You can trust them. They do a great job. And here's what they do as part of that process. That's the idea behind the show.
Now, you and I go, wow, some way back, and I remember there was a pretty tough time there for a while, wasn't there, Wayne?
Yeah, 100%.
You may have even thought about getting out of the business, didn't you, at one stage?
We, for a long period of time, we hankered down, and the only people making money were our landlord, our suppliers, and in fact, to a great degree, to be honest, our salespeople. We had to help people through that tough period. So it was pretty dark.
That was the great financial crisis,
Absolutely.
2008. 2009 was tough, 2010.
10 was tough.
When did you start seeing it starting to free up?
To be honest, 11, we were still pretty concerned about where things were. 12, we thought we could breathe again.
Wow.
So we really tightened our belts on everything. It was great. We went away from the high life to the normal life. And it's far more enjoyable being there. And I think it's made us better people for it. A bit scary at the time, but good to be on the other side of it.
Would you like to be in an industry that didn't have the yo-yo effect?
Yeah, 100%. We can find that balance. I'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about today. If you read the Herald or any newspaper or look on the internet, it's all go, go, go for real estate at the moment. It's unbelievable, you know, they'll say to people that their home is actually valuating, or is actually going up in value more than they're actually making in wages or salary.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be consistent. I think New Zealand, with the level of wages, which is normal, I think that's only your cash flow. You're never going to get rich off wages. You need to tuck that money away. You probably need to have a mortgage, almost compulsory saving, and be investing that into a property, and then having a long-term a look at where you're going to be and holding on to that. And then maybe along the way, if you can, buy some extra property.
Being an auctioneer, you know, you do a great job, and I've seen you in action, Wayne. Have you tell me your biggest surprise. You had a house worth, what, 400,000, it goes for 1.6. Has that ever happened? Or?
We have some pretty big prices. We've got a very detailed auction process, which I keep under wraps to a great degree. That's the magic we put in there. And we've had an auction recently where the vendor's expectation and what it actually sold for, and we had a long period of bidding. It would have been 10 minutes of solid, hard bidding.
You must have been shocked. Wow, where's this going?
I was loving it. I was loving it. And it goes down into $1,000 bids, then back up to 10,000 and 20, and it goes on. And I had a number of auctions that night, and at the end of the night, after about 8 auctions, this was an early property, the vendors were still there, and they were shell-shocked. They hadn't literally moved off the couch. They did have a glass of wine, but they were still coming to grips with it, and that was great to see.
What did they expect and what did they get?
The difference was around $800,000.
Wow.
Which is like winning lotto.
That's like winning lotto.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
They just couldn't believe it.
No.
No wonder they sat on the sofa. Look, I love all this talk. It's wonderful, but we've got to finish. Wayne, now let's just go over once again, tomorrow night, Face TV, 8 o'clock, the very first inaugural ever, and it's called Property Success.
Property Success New Zealand, that's us.
Yeah.
I'll be there watching to make sure it's good.
It's going to be great.
Fantastic.
Wayne,
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Once again, a big thanks to Wayne for joining us on The Beat Goes On. And before we talk to our special guest, we have a winner to announce from last week's show. One lucky viewer has won a $100 voucher for a sumptuous meal at the Blue Elephant Thai restaurant in Parnell. From the draw, the second winner of our 10 giveaway vouchers was Brian Follis. Congratulations to Brian, and stand by your letterbox. And before we continue, we ask of our viewers a special favour. Like us on Facebook. Stay in touch with the longest running chat show in New Zealand. And a reminder for all businesses catering for the baby boomer, if you would like to advertise on The Beat Goes On and promote your product, give me a call. That's Jared Smith at 09 525 1512, 09 525 1512. And right now it's time for that time when we talk to our special guest. Tonight our special guest is John Litton. John is halfway through his term as Grand Master of Freemasonry in New Zealand. To get to the top in Freemasonry is a wonderful achievement. So I asked John what he likes best about the job. John Litton, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful position in our New Zealand society.
Yes, I'm very privileged.
The Grand Master of Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is a pretty impressive title, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky to have the role. It's a great privilege. It gives me a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of fellow Freemasons and their partners, and to travel a fair bit as well. So, and it's, I mean, I'm in the second year of my term of 3 years, and we've done a lot of travelling, and we met some wonderful people, some wonderful Freemasons and their partners. Yeah.
Now you're travelling right now, and that's why you're in Auckland, because you're a Wellington
Correct,
man.
yes.
But it's the 125th anniversary of the Grand Lodge in New Zealand.
Of Freemasons in New Zealand. Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing record, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
They didn't get there easily because prior to that they had the English, the Irish and the Scottish constitutions in New Zealand, and they decided to form their own constitution.
Yeah.
I have to say it took a number of years to get to that stage, and even then there was a fair bit of discussion, shall we say, I think, to put it politely. But the guys, you have to admire them for their sort of enthusiasm for doing it.
So let's get that right before we talk about the roadshow. You're saying that 125 years ago there was a Scottish constitution, an Irish constitution, and an English constitution.
Correct.
And the New Zealanders said, "Hey, we want our own," and that's what they did.
Virtually what happened. Yeah.
So that was 125 years ago.
That was 125 years. I mean, some of the lodges here, like I'm going to a meeting very shortly, which in fact the age of the lodge is 150 years, because prior to becoming a New Zealand constitution they were Irish.
Yeah.
So some of the lodges are quite old, yeah.
They are. Now, you're on a roadshow as well. There's a Freemasonry roadshow. It was at the Aotea Centre.
Yes, just been there and had a look at it again. It's a wonderful exhibition. Spells that in good English, what we actually get down to. One of the problems we have is that we tend to speak what I call Masonic speak, and people don't understand it. And what is nice about the roadshow is that all the explanation is quite clear and put in plain English, which is really good, yeah.
Now, there's a lot of mystery, confusion, bewilderment, and absolute bunkum on the internet about Freemasons. There's a group of conspiracists out there that believe that every evil in the world was created by Freemasons. Yep. And how do they get to that conclusion?
Well, I think the problem to some extent is the way that we've behaved. I mean, my father was a Freemason, and we weren't allowed to ask him as kids. You know, he disappeared once a month with his little bag, and then we weren't allowed to sort of say.
You weren't even allowed to
We were
talk
just
to
told
him,
he was going to lodge, and that was it. And so I think one of the things that obviously people then sort of started to were a bit scurrilous about what these people were doing once a month in lodge rooms which had no windows and looked like a sort of a prison. And so we got that sort of reputation.
For being a secret society.
For being a secret society. But what I've tried to do, and certainly all the people around me, all the sort of management team, we're now trying to be far more open. I mean, we've got nothing to be ashamed of. I describe us as a caring organisation. I think that's the easiest way to understand it. We care for people. We have some pretty high morals and ethos, and we practice this caring in our lodges. We care for people in our community. We care for people in our lodges and their partners and families. And part of our caring, of course, is all the research that we do, medical research. And currently, of course, this year we've been combining with the Blind Institution with their 125-year celebrations as well. And so we've combined with them, and we have actually raised funds to buy them what they call daisy players, which is I suppose it's a bit like a CD machine, which is a specialised machine so that they can read books and so on for people with impaired sighting. And our aim was to provide 125.
Of those machines?
Of those machines. We've actually exceeded that. It's been a huge success. All the lodges and the Freemasons right throughout New Zealand have
Good
got
on you.
behind it. And we've already presented the 125 and the funds are still pouring in, so we'll be there to do more for the blind.
So you're in the business of doing good works. That's basically it.
Basically, yeah. We
And
did
these
this.
mad conspiracy
Well,
theorists, they completely miss the point.
And it's probably because we don't talk about it enough,
Yeah.
you know. And I think you know, I've said to, I mean, I have to say that when I joined Freemasonry, my father didn't sort of cajole me at all because I'd left the UK then and was living in Africa, and my boss was a Freemason, and we went to one of what they call a ladies' night, which is a thing that's peculiar to English Freemasonry, where they take their partners and wives out once a year and give them a splendid sort of dinner and presents. And we were invited to go to one of these in Kenya, and whilst I was there, I went up to the bar to buy a drink for my wife and myself and some of the people on the table, and I suddenly realised that all the people around me were the people I was playing sports with: hockey, rugby, tennis, squash, all that.
And you didn't know they were Freemasons?
And I didn't know they were Freemasons.
Wow.
And they were like bees around a honeypot. All of a sudden I'm surrounded by them as I'm at the bar, and and they sort of said to me, have you ever thought about joining Freemasonry? I said, yes, my father's a Freemason, but no, I won't join it because you guys won't tell me what it's about. So I was quite stroppy, I suppose, in that respect. And one of the things that stuck with me, which I've never forgotten actually, was that one of the guys, I said, so what do you think of your father? And I said, well, he's one of the kindest, generous men that I've ever met, totally honest, and you know, he's a wonderful bloke. If I could aspire to being like him, I'd be, you know. And they said, well, do you think he would have joined an organisation of which you didn't approve? And I said, well no.
That's a good point, wasn't it?
And so that sort of hit home. And then on the way home, my wife Diana said to me, what was that? When they sort of bailed you up at the bar? I said, well, you can probably imagine they were having a crack at me about joining Freemasonry. And she just said, well, why don't you? Because your father would be absolutely delighted. And that's what triggered me to join Freemasonry.
Wow.
It's as simple as that. So, and I've never looked back, and I think it's probably one of the best moves I've ever made.
And wouldn't your father be proud to know that you became the
Yes.
Grand Master in New Zealand?
Yes, he would,
Yeah.
because he's been dead some years now. Sadly, he didn't propose me into Freemasonry and didn't see me being initiated, and that's my regret now. I wish I'd, you know, I'd been...
Look, just to a little add on here, Freemasonry was very secretive because it started way back in 1760, and at that time, people were very fearful to talk about religion, to talk about politics, to talk about anything. And in fact, they found in Freemasonry an opportunity to join an organisation where they could actually discuss things without being arrested and executed. And so that's how it developed, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose the secret side of it was basically because they were stonemasons, and they all had their guilds, which they had their secrets, and their craft, and they were secrets. You know, they didn't reveal to people. A bit like, I don't know whether you've ever spoken to French polishers. If you ever see an old school French polisher, he won't tell you what his mixtures are when he French polishes. No. That's his trade secret.
That's his trade, yes.
And so these stonemasons had their trade secrets. And so they started to form lodges and so on, and that's how it all really started. And that's where the secret bit came into it, of course, as well. But I suppose the beauty for me is that one of the things about Freemasonry is you can go to meetings where you know you're amongst people with integrity, who care, and we don't discuss religion or politics, and we tolerate, you know, we're very tolerant of all people, and I think that was one of the things that's really appealing.
But the wonderful thing about it too is you could leave New Zealand and go to pick a place on the map in the world, say Milwaukee in the United States. You could arrive in that town, phone the local lodge, and you'd be treated like a king, and they'd be overwhelmed to have you. And
the beauty
that's what's
is,
great about it, isn't it? They look after you.
And also as well, I think when you go there, you quickly become instantly friends, quite frankly, because you know you can trust those people because they have the same sort of background to you and think the same way as you do. So yeah, it's a very nice organisation in that respect.
Now, it's had its heyday, Freemasonry. After the Second World War, there wasn't a lot of competition, but they were up to 50,000 members.
Correct.
Today, it's down to 10,000.
It's lower than that now.
Oh, is it lower than that? But even Rotary, even the Round Table organisations, the Lions, they're all suffering the same
fate, really.
Pace of membership loss. And it is because there's so much competition now, isn't there?
Well, I think I think when you think about one of the things that perhaps all of the organisations like ours haven't realised is the changes around them. I mean, when you think about just the mobile phone if you remember 10 years ago, we had mobile phones that were like bricks.
Yeah.
Now look at them now, and they're slim and neat, can sit in your pocket. So I think that one of the things that we haven't realised is, well, the change in the family dynamics. I mean, when you think about it, when I joined Freemasonry, we were a one-income family. My wife stayed at home, and she was the person that looked after all the domestic issues, like the children and so on, and took them to school and so on, and whilst I worked. And we had a 40-hour week, and we really didn't have all the pressures around them that the young people today have. So today, if you look at the family, I mean, I didn't have a car until I think I was 28. Today, I think young people, if they haven't got a car when they're 15 or 16, they're out of it, you know.
You're not cool.
No. So I think the pressures on younger people today are much greater. I mean, most families have 2 cars, if not more. They've got to have a house with 4 bedrooms and en-suites and spa bars and all the latest TV equipment. So they have a huge amount. And we're competing against the fact that both the parents are working, and so they share the domestic duties, which we didn't do before. So time is precious for outside things, and that's where we're competing.
What ideas are coming out of the meetings?
We need to explain our organisation, and because when you get down to it and people do join, they realise how attractive the organisation is. The word attractive is the right word to use. And I just think we need to go out there. We do need to change some of the things that we used to do. Taking in mind what the younger generation want. For instance, we used to have our lodge meetings, of course, and we have a meal afterwards, but it was restricted to the men, and sometimes the meal was just sandwiches and a beer, which was fine, you know. But young people today, they go out for meals and they want wine and so on, and they want a meal that's all catered for, and they want their wives to be with them, and there's nothing wrong with that, quite frankly, you know. And we've just got to realise that and start to move that way as well. So listen to the younger people as to, you know, what do you want from Freemasonry? Having explained it, and most of them say, I've said to me, because I usually sort of try and eyeball them, because they're the future of Freemasonry. They're going to be the custodians when I'm long gone, and they say that they don't want to change the history of the way Freemasonry works, our ceremonial things. They don't want to change any of that, and they like the fact that they can come into a lodge. In fact, one young guy was fascinating. He's an IT guy, and he said, I'm literally exposed every day, hour of the day, with my cell phone, my laptop, my tablet. I can't get away from it, except when I go to lodge. I can go to lodge and I can go into the meeting, and that's all outside, and I can relax. You know, and I think that surprised me for a young guy, you know. So he was looking for something that would take the pressure off his work pressure and his home pressure. So I think we have lots of things that we can do, and there's lots of young people want to help people in the community as well. So,
John, we're running out of time, but I do want to know, did you ever think that you would be the Grand Master, and what was the pathway to becoming the Grand Master of New Zealand?
I never thought of it. I've been extremely lucky in my life. In fact, somebody said to me the other day, would you change it? The answer is no, I wouldn't. I mean, the fact that I have a lovely wife, and she's been very supportive. I mean, that's part of the role of Grand Master. Your partner it plays a very important part, and Diana, my wife, plays a huge part for me. But I never aspired to being Grand Master. I started off, and I was hinted at about taking on a Grand Officer role, which I did, and whether my face was in the right spot, I've certainly made a luck up for sure. And of course, I never aspired to it. Lodges actually nominate you for various roles, and so I was lucky enough to get to the top. So.
You have to be a good people person, a good team player, a good mixer. Obviously, you had those skills. Where do you think you got them from?
I got them from my business sense, I think, as well, because I've always, I've been a fairly senior manager in the financial services, and one of the things I've always done was build a good team around me, because that makes it much stronger. And I like to be challenged, to be honest. I mean, I think if you're a senior manager, the only way you can perform is if the people that are managers under you challenge the things that you're doing and come up with ideas. So you can't do it on your own. You need a team around you, and Freemasonry certainly does that for me. I've got a wonderful team around me at the moment.
Now, John, people may be listening to our show. They're baby boomers. There's no age limit on who can join, is there? How would you go about if you thought, hey, I like what John's saying, I'd like to join Freemasonry? What's the next step?
Okay, so first of all, you've got to be over 21. We now have funny enough, I've got the booklet in my pocket here somewhere, which I can show you, which is something that we've designed, and I'll leave with you as well if you haven't seen it. It's a book that talks about Freemasonry in plain English.
I like it. It says Plain English
Yeah.
Guide to Freemasonry.
Totally. And so all the questions that usually younger people
Yeah.
or people ask about Freemasonry, we've tried to answer in there. And that was put together by the fact that when I became Grand Master, my lovely wife said to me, you know, I feel a bit threatened here because you actually never sat down and talked about what Freemasonry is about, even to me.
Yeah.
And then I have a young daughter who's a school teacher who is very challenging. She's lovely, actually. She said, then it's the same for me, Dad. You've never talked to me. And all my friends are saying, so what does it mean your father's being Grand Master? So that triggered Di and I to put together this sort of booklet.
In plain English.
In plain English. No Masonic gobbledygook, as I call it, in there.
But the first step would be to go to www.freemasons.co.nz.
Yeah,
and request this in plain English.
Yeah, you can request that, yeah. So,
But look, just before you do, I mean, you get to meet John Key, all the politicians. You get to meet everyone in New Zealand, don't you?
Yeah,
What a great opportunity.
I mean, last week or the week before, we were up here in Auckland going to the Dean of Auckland University's dinner, you know, and all those wonderful people there as well.
Yeah.
Now, I would never have had that opportunity in the past either, you know, so it's been really good, yeah.
John, great talking to you.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Been
for inviting
wonderful.
me. No,
Thanks,
a
John.
million.
Bye-bye.
Coming up next on The Beat Goes On, we welcome our ambassador from Parnell, Kevin Harvey. Kevin, along with his father Les, began the creation of the Parnell Village back in the early 70s. Today, it remains one of New Zealand's top tourist attractions.
Welcome back, Mr. Harvey, Kevin Harvey from the beautiful islands of Hawaii.
Yes, and a beautiful
Oh,
place.
what a beautiful tan you've got too, Kevin. That's,
I'll say.
Yeah. Now you've got a guest, another tenant. Thank you for bringing another tenant from Parnell, Kevin. Introduce your guest, please.
Yes, this is Fred.
Hello. Oh, that's a good name, isn't it, Fred?
Fred Bacon.
Fred Bacon, is that true?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Not Sir Francis Bacon.
No.
Distantly related.
And Fred has a beautiful shop in Parnell, and he travels across to Europe to buy his product. It's fashion, high fashion,
For women's fashion.
women's
Yes.
fashion. Yeah.
So give us the name of the shop, Fred.
It's trades as Faraci, which
How
is
would you spell
part,
that?
It's F-E-R-R-A-C-H-I.
Yeah. What is
So
it?
it's part French, part Italian. So we wanted a name that would do half and half.
Closest I know is Ferrari, isn't it? No, Faraci? Is it?
Yes.
These are for very fast women?
Can be. Can be. No, we're offering very affordable clothes from two countries in the whole, Italy and from France,
Yep.
and also from Korea.
Wow. Funny how the Koreans are getting into it now. Is
Yes.
it because they have a cheaper line, or what's the?
No, the Korean designers have just become very influential over the last 5 years. You know, the Japanese have had their so-called era of being very top designers, and now we're seeing the Koreans coming through, very, very ahead of everything else that seems to be happening out there. It's been.
Now, Fred, you're in an industry where, like Kevin and I are always saying to ourselves, what do women want? But you have to work it out every day. What do women want when it
What
comes
do
to
want?
clothing? Yeah.
Well, it changes. It changes constantly. You know, where one day it's colour, it's street fashion. It's off the catwalk. It's developed, and it's out there. And so we try and do our best to try and put something that is affordable and has the look.
Do you pride yourself on there's a parade in, say, Paris, and X amount of days it's in your shop? Do you pride yourself on that, or
It's not quite like that, but certainly the looks that come off the catwalk are developed very quickly, and it's mass produced around the world.
And you do the buying, Fred?
No, my wife does, and jointly with myself as well. So we both travel. Yes.
God, what a great life, isn't it? So, Kevin, I think we've got the wrong business, haven't we?
Well, it would be nice to go to Europe a little bit more often.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Now, Fred, you've chosen the best suburb in New Zealand, hasn't he, Kevin?
I could be a little bit biased, but yeah, I think
You're
so.
being biased. I'm being biased, but the best. You've chosen the best suburb in New Zealand. Why? Where did that big decision come from?
My heart's always been in Parnell.
Has it
I
really?
lived there for 10 years,
Yeah.
up the top of Parnell Rise. And going back into, even when Kevin's dad was alive, we used to have some great lunches together. And he was always very proactive in promoting Parnell. And
Yeah.
Parnell, has always had that essence to be above everything else. It's just got that uniqueness. And we just want it to come back to where it was, basically, in the 80s. If we can get that again, it's wonderful. And it is happening.
Yeah, it's starting to
It's
happen,
happening.
isn't it?
It's
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
And it's great to see, other people with construction coming in and getting involved. It'll come into its
Now,
own
for the last
again.
2 weeks, Fred, you noticed the whole of Parnell went quiet because Kevin went to Hawaii. Yeah. And I think
Often happens.
we need to ask Kevin very quickly, what's your first impressions, lasting impressions of the great American country called America and, of course, Hawaii?
Well, you're very naughty because I'm not going to talk about it. But
You're glad to be home, that's what you were really
I'm
saying.
very proud to be a Kiwi, and I'm very proud of us Kiwis and the people of the South Pacific.
Yeah.
The Samoans and the Cook Islanders, they're wonderful people, especially after you spend 2 weeks in Hawaii. What more can I say? The food over here is beautiful.
Yeah.
And what I love too is, very simplistically, I love the diversity and the independence of Kiwis, and they're not arrogant. They're very, very underplayed, and
But it's not, a touch of arrogance in the Hawaiian people, you thought.
I didn't say that. I was talking about the positive side of Kiwis when you compare it to other.
Now, of all your tenants, Kevin, you've got lots, well over 100. How important is it to have a very good tenant like Fred in the women's fashion industry? How important it is for the mix of Parnell?
Well, as you know, that's probably the most important criteria for us as a family. All of our tenants, they're not just names on spreadsheets, they're people, and they play the major part of what makes Parnell what it is, in terms of its ambience, quality of product. It's the most special thing that we can have, and so I do take time to collect them, and collectively it just enhances the whole area, and it does get a buzz about it.
It's a two-way relationship, isn't it? Because you know that if Fred's going to have a beautiful store with all the, it reflects well on Parnell, doesn't it? That's so.
Yeah.
It's both working for each other in a funny way.
Actually, we're all working together.
Yeah.
Not
Now, what we do need, Fred, is the exact location of the shop, and because we want our viewers to come along and have a
That's a
chat.
beautiful shop.
Yeah. So what's
So we're 239
239
Parnell Road,
Parnell Road?
right in the dead centre.
Right at the dead centre. Yeah.
So about 5 shops up from Don Solu Pizza.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very
yeah,
close
Yeah.
to go and have a lunch and a browse.
Yeah. So now, how long you been there, Fred?
We've been just over 2 years now.
Yeah. And you have one other shop as well?
Yes, one in Queen's
Queen
Arcade.
Street.
Yes.
Oh, Queen's Arcade.
in
Oh,
Queen Street
great.
there.
So, Kevin, you're glad to be back, and
Very happy to be
when's
back.
your next holiday? So we've got you on the show now for.
Well, I figured out that for the same amount of money I spent to go to Hawaii, I could have gone to Crete.
Crete. Oh, is that your next target?
Yes, that'll
Yeah.
be, and it's a fantastic place. It's very real.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to thank you, Fred,
you very much.
a bit of a stretch, isn't it?
Yes.
For coming and telling us that your final thing is that who's the best landlord in New Zealand? That's what I want to know. We're
Well,
not going
we-
to put you on the spot at all. Fred.
We've got one sitting right here, without a doubt. And I mean that.
And under pressure.
And under pressure. Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much.
See you weeks later.
He's a singer, and he's a man that can shake, rattle, and roll. And he takes us down memory lane week after week with Where Are They Now? And the Song of the Week. To finish the show, it's our pop encyclopedia, Shane.
Hello, Shane.
Oh,
I bet you had a great weekend, Shane.
I have,
I know
actually.
you would.
Fantastic.
You'd be out there in the garden planting the
Well,
potatoes.
I don't know about potatoes. I'm Irish, but I'm not that Irish. I do like my potatoes.
You are a great gardener, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I love my garden.
Yeah.
It's the only place I get the tranquility and the peace that I need.
Well, that's a big word for a pop star.
Well, tranquility is something
Tranquility.
I love. And it's a tranquil word to say, tranquility.
It is a tranquil, yeah.
And yeah, I've got my eels down the back that I feed in
you've
the
got the eel-
stream.
yeah,
I've
there's
got,
a stream
I've
there.
got an eel farm just about now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
How many turn up?
Probably about 10 to 11 or so, you know. And it's funny. I mean, I sound like an idiot, but I love feeding the eels every day. I go down and check. We buy bread now just for the eels.
Yeah.
And then we've got the cat, and then we've got the dog, and then, you know, that's all that stuff, you know.
Remind me not to come around.
We might have some smoked eel on for you for entree when you come around.
Anyway, Shane, you know, it all pales into insignificance, that story, compared to Song of the Week.
I don't know why I went on about eels like that. God, I can't get over it. But anyway, look, we've had the Jersey Boys, there's Elvis, the musical in the West End in London, and then there's Let It Be by the Beatles. And of course now it's almost a year it's been running, and this is an amazing musical over there called Sunny Afternoon.
Kinks.
And the Kinks, and it's the music of the Kinks, and it's a musical all about Dave Davies and his brother, and all the things that went on with Peter Quaife, the bass player, and the Kinks. And apparently it's got 5-star rating. I mean, everyone, the reviews are fantastic.
I love it.
And Andy, one of our producers here at Face TV, went to see it just recently. I said to him, when we were in the West End, did you go and see that? And he said, he was over the moon about it. He was telling me. And it is, the Kinks, I mean, they left such a wonderful amount of songs and everything.
Now, the Kinks, if there was no Rolling Stones, Beatles, or a few of those other groups, they would have been the best group in the world, weren't they?
They were.
They had
I mean,
such
at the
competition,
time,
didn't they?
At the time, they were up there with the Rolling Stones,
you know,
and with the Beatles and everything else. They actually knocked the Beatles' Paperback Writer off the chart with their Sunny Afternoon song.
Now, Waterloo Sunset, still a classic.
It's a beautiful
And
song.
dedicated follower of fashion. I used to love that one too.
Yeah.
They seek him here.
And of course, they had a sad affair because what happened in America, for instance, is the Beatles, you know, the invasion, the British invasion, all that sort of thing. What happens is they're in there as well at the beginning. A couple of singles and that, You Really Got Me and All Day and All of the Night. And all of a sudden, they're banned from the States. The music, Musicians Union banned them for 4 years. Well, that was the period when the British bands basically took over America.
I've never heard this. What
They got because of their onstage antics and their bad behaviour on stage, where they used to fight quite a bit. I mean, the Who are renowned for it and all that sort of thing. But they had some real bad paste-ups, you know, and they were doing a show at Cardiff in Wales, and at I think it's the Palace Theatre. But they were there at the theatre, and halfway through the show, they'd just done You Really Got Me, and there was a bit of aggro between the drummer and Dave Davies. Now, Dave Davies is getting really upset, so he verbally abuses the drummer, you know. He said, you're not playing this right, or something like that. There was aggro going between the two of them. So, and then he kicked his drums and started kicking his drums over. This is in the middle of their show. And so Mick Avery takes umbrage, of course. You're kicking my bloody drums, you know, I'm up here. And he gets up and he picks up his hi-hat and he swings it around and bang, he hits Dave Davies over the head. Blood everywhere. And he freaked out. He was so shocked at his own actions that he'd hit him over the head with his hi-hat. Yeah. He saw the blood and went, and he collapsed on the floor.
Could have sliced his head off, couldn't he?
Well, it did, almost. It was across his hair, it nearly took the scalp off. And 16 stitches later, and in hospitalised, the ambulance came, took him away and everything. He was unconscious on the floor. And the drummer, Mick Avery, left the theatre and ran. He thought he'd murdered him. He thought he was going to be done. The police came and saw them to sort out an arrest and everything else. It was all on, but the band, they got together and closed ranks and said, look, it was an accident. What happened was we were throwing gear around like the Who, you know, were smashing their gear. They were adding a little bit more excitement to the act. That's what they said. This is the baloney story. And they got out of it, and the police dropped the charges and said, okay, well, fair enough, if that's what happened, then that's okay. But the band closed ranks. It wasn't what really happened. It was a really... so anyway, the American Musicians Union heard about this, and that was why they got canned. They said, yeah, we don't need that sort of stuff over here. And they knew the true story. And they banned them for 4 years from performing in America. So that's what really, I was going to say screwed them, but it stuffed their whole...
The momentum was,
for them.
Broken.
Whereas the Beatles and the Stones and all the other bands were going great guns in America. The Kinks, all of a sudden, nothing happened in America until later, in around about 1970. Then they started breaking in again with all their new albums, and by then they changed a hell of a lot, and the whole scene was different.
Now, the one thing about the Kinks, they had great songs. So who was their main songwriter?
Well, it was Ray Davies.
Ray Davies.
Ray Davies, of course, and there's two brothers in the band, as I said before.
What was it,
Dave,
Ray and who else?
Ray and Dave Davies.
Right, okay.
Now, Dave, his brother, they started out in a skiffle band and all that. Their parents had all-night parties, and their two youngest of the family, they were the two brothers.
Ray and Dave.
Yeah, Ray and Dave. Now, they're the youngest, but how they learnt rock and roll and everything was because they were playing skiffle music that their sisters bought, because they had 6 elder sisters. So they grew up in a family of 8
With
kids.
6 elder sisters.
So 8, there's 10 in the family, and Mum and Dad party. They were hard party people. Great neighbours, you'd love them. It's just what you need. And they lived in Muswell Hill up in London. I'm digressing a bit, but you got to hear
this is great stuff.
So they were Muswell Hillbillies, basically, which they called one of their albums later in their career. They formed a band, the Ray Davies Trio, which was with Peter Quaife, who was the bass player of the Kinks as well, and Dave and Ray.
Well, when did they change it to Kinks?
Well, they changed it. It happened like this. It was they became the Ramrods. Then they became the Ravens. And the Ravens is the band that they settled. We're going to be the Ravens when the '64 boom was going. And every record company basically turned them down. But Pye gave them a chance. But they needed a different name. And the manager, he turned around and he said, well, he had a mate, and he said, they're kinky. I really like them. They're fun. They're a real fun band and everything else. Why don't you call them the Kinks? And so he goes back to the band with this name. He said, you're going to be called the Kinks. Well, there was an uproar. We're not going to be called Kinky. The Kinks. It sounds crap.
And yet it was a great name.
And it's a great name because it caught everyone's attention, didn't it? And that was the idea. He said, the Ravens is never going to get you anywhere. And so anyway, Pye had given them a chance. They made 2 singles, bombed out terribly, nothing.
As the Kinks.
Yeah, as the Kinks. And then then Pye said, look, we've given you a chance. 3rd time, if you don't get a hit with this song, we're dropping your contract. We don't want you either. So what did they do? You really got me. Bang, #1 everywhere. And suddenly they were the darlings of Pye Records. And from then on, it was never looked back, and they were off. And it was #1 in Ireland, America,
New Zealand,
everywhere.
sure.
Yeah, New Zealand it was, Australia, so on. So they had a great career. They kick-started it, and they kept their contract with Pye. That was how that evolved. But Ray Davies was like the songwriter, and as I say, and he still remembers vividly when writing Sunny Afternoon, our song of the week.
Yeah.
Now, Sunny Afternoon, he's sitting there, he had a bit of a breakdown in '65, just before the single was released, and he hadn't written for a while. He was wondering whether he was having the blank thing, you know.
Writer's block.
Writer's block. He was having a panic attack about it. And it'd been 2 months he hadn't written a thing, and he couldn't. So he bought himself a white upright piano, moved it into the house, and he was doing quite well. But what had happened, he was quite depressed at the time. He left the band, actually, for a couple of months. He said, that's it, I'm over. I can't stand the pace. They were overworked because they were just on non-stop. Da-da-da-da. Playing You Really Got Me everywhere. And, of course, you know, it takes its toll when you're out there all the time. And you're earning all this money, but then the Labour government was in. Good old Harold Wilson was taking every dollar you earned.
98 cents.
90% of your money went in tax if you were a high earner. Same with the Beatles, they wrote Taxman about the same thing. And he was sitting there, and he just got this new piano. He says he remembers it vividly. He hadn't written a song in 2 months. He's sitting there, and he goes, bam, dam, dam, dam. He said, it just came out. That riff, dam, 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 dam. And he was only listening to Frank Sinatra and Bach, stuff, music like that, and Glenn Miller. I mean, weird. He wasn't listening to any pop music. He played this descending riff thing, and it was the beginning, and he went, oh, it's part. And he was quite unhappy about paying this 90% tax, so the tax man's taken all my dough and left me in a state of woe. It was the beginning of a song, you know. But then what he did, he put the part in about the charlatan, you know, the guy who gets drunk every night, and the wife's run off with his yacht because taking everything he's got because basically because he was a bad guy because he got drunk every night and carried on, you know. But he put that character in there to take it away from being just a moaning about the tax bereavement, you know, being bereaved about the tax that he was paying.
Now, how did it do?
That was the big
number
hit.
one,
1965, July it was released, and it was #1, bang, all around the world again. And it put the Kinks back on the map, but in a different genre, away from the heavy thing, all that, the guitar riff thing, you know. So the other side of the story, just before you surmise, is the fact that he can vividly remember writing that song, but he says he had his almost one-year-old child rolling on the carpet. The room had orange walls, Spanish orange walls, you know, everyone had that in the 60s. And he said, I can even remember I had a polar neck sweater on. It was so vivid, that moment when I played that thing on the piano. When that came out of me, he said, I can just, the whole room, everything is crystal clear in my brain. Wow. I can see what happened, you know. It's an amazing...
Well, we all want to hear it now, Shane. So
yeah, let's get on.
I can surmise that tonight's Song of the Week has got to be...
by the Kinks, Ray Davies classic, Sunny Afternoon.
The taxman's taken all my dough and left me in my stately home, blazing on a sunny afternoon. And I can't sail my yacht, he's taken everything I got. All I've got's this sunny afternoon. Save me, save me, save me from this squeeze. I got a big fat mama trying to break me, and I love to live so pleasantly, live this life of luxury, blazing on a sunny afternoon. Summertime, in the summertime, in the summertime. My girlfriend's run off with my car and gone back to her ma and pa, telling tales of drunkenness and cruelty. Now I'm sitting here, sipping at my ice cold beer, blazing on a sunny afternoon. Help me, help me, help me sail away. Well, give me 2 good reasons why I ought to stay. 'Cause I love to live so pleasantly, live this life of luxury, blazing on a sunny afternoon.
Shane, I love that song.
Bring a bit of sunshine into my life.
Well, it's summer coming up, Shane, so
Yeah.
the sun's...
Well, that's
sun
what
is
we
coming.
need. I thought we've got to do some sunny songs for a while and get this weather turned around, you know. It's still not happening. I mean, spring's nearly over, isn't it? I keep my mother reckons there's no spring anymore. She says, it's winter every day. She's, 94-year freezing, aren't you? Got old mum.
No, great song, great choice, Shane.
Great choice. Now,
yeah.
did you know?
No,
I have to do a did you know.
I had no idea.
Did you know that there is still talk of a reunion, a Kinks reunion? Can you imagine it? I'd be there. God, yeah. all those great.
But some of them are sick though, aren't they? One's died, hasn't they?
Well, one's died. This is Peter Quaife, the bass player.
Yeah.
He passed away in 2010, believe it or not, at the age of 66. Very sad, young. But he'd been on a dialysis machine for 10 years through kidney failure and stuff like that. You know, probably knocked himself about. And he was a younger man. And Mick Avery, the drummer, he suffers from ill health now.
Yeah.
The guy who hit Dave around with around the head with the old cymbal. It only leaves Dave, of the original members, it only leaves Dave and
Ray.
Dave and Ray.
Yeah.
But they've got other members of the Kinks who are still, you know, they've had other guys since, until their breakup in 1996. They had a lot of other musicians involved. But the two brothers, apparently they fight all the time. But between them, Ray Davies has been heard to say recently, no, we don't. We only fight in public because it's more interesting than fighting at home. You know? And we don't have any problems. We get on great. But why fighting in private when you can fight in public, they reckon?
Well, Shane, I'm actually looking forward to their next single. It's called Sunny Afternoon Sausage.
That sounds like a Barbie to me, yeah. Sunny afternoon with a good old sausage on the Barbie.
Sterling job, old sausage.
Thank you.
Sterling job, old sausage.
Okay.
You've done a wonderful job. And Shane, I can only say for the 311th time, Shane, you've done it again.
Oh, save me, save me, save me from this squeeze. I got a big fat mama trying to break me. And I love to live so pleasantly. Live